All right. Hello and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about paradox and journey. So these two topics, ooh, sorry, phone just did something weird and then fell over. Here we go. Okay. Great, I think we're all right. Okay, so today, yes, we're going to be talking about paradox and journey, and these two things fit really well together to talk about, and are something that I believe are very, very, very important for walking our awakening path. Because, like I say, my main kind of umbrella teaching is self-love. And the reason that I teach self-love is because for me, it has been the foundation for everything that I know and everything that I have come to understand in my life and in my experience. And I have found it as being something that helped me really grasp and work with paradox and journey. Okay? So I really wanted to start with saying that again, right? Like the self-love path in and of itself is a paradoxical thing. And it is not a means to an end, or it is not an end in and of itself, but rather a means to an end. So when we are walking the self-love path, what we are really saying is that we are open to and we're allowing ourselves to grow and expand and be on this human journey. And we're letting go of the idea of heaven over there in exchange for being in the moment that we're in and finding our power and finding our joy and finding our like that, the serenity prayer, finding the things that we cannot change and learning to accept them and learning which things we can change and going about figuring out how to change those things in order to make this living experience more enjoyable. Because I actually got a question the other day that is really pertinent to this, where they said, you talk about processing and you talk about numbing, but you never talk about like life. Like she said, like most of my time I spend just like doing life stuff, like working and groceries and dishes and taking care of kids and all these things. And she's like, so like, how do you find the balance between these things? And I was like, well, yes, exactly. Like, most of life is the mundanity of life. Most of life is our just journey through the kind of the ups and the downs and the highs and the lows and that just being in life. Oh, hey, Chris, you're wonderful too, so thank you for being here. And it's just the kind of like beingness of life. And when I'm talking about, oh, yes, it is very long. I never cut it. The beingness of life. And then what we do is the processing part, the stuff that I talk about, the like how do we get inside of our bodies, how do we get inside of our emotions, how do we develop this emotional mastery, how do we develop this self-love. That is really all about giving us more information about ourselves and about the world and making ourselves a safe place and doing all these things so that we can then make that like 90% of our life, the bulk of our life, where we're just living and working and relating and doing all these things better and better and better for ourselves. Because that's where life happens. Like that's the actual juice of life, right? Like the processing we do is, again, a means to an end. It's not the end in of itself. And then on the other side of things, right, like we have to kind of understand that the coping and the numbing and the self-sabotage and all these things that we say are wrong with us, or our bad habits, our addictions, our scapegoats, our anxiety, our depression, like all these things, that stuff is the response to the life that we're living that's out of alignment with us. And again, that's not like, this is a paradox, that's not 100% you just decided to make your life shitty for yourself and you're coping and you're numbing and you're addicted and you're self-sabotaging and you're doing all these things because you knew what reality was, you knew who you were, you know what you need, you know what the right thing is for you, and you're just not doing it. There are systems, you were indoctrinated, you were born into a world that exactly does not align with how humans function. Like, this is just a fact of reality that I can just say without feeling like I might be wrong, right? Like, there are just so many things in society that are absolutely counter to what human nature needs to thrive. So that's absolutely true. And you do have some power to figure some things out about yourself and to work with the tools that you have and to work with the life that you have and the resources that you have, which is different for all of us, to figure out how you can get closer to a life that works for you within the world we live in. So it's not one or the other. It's both. And the self-love path is about embracing that we're never going to get to perfect alignment. We're never going to get to perfect self-awareness. We're never going to get to perfect self-expression, because in order for life to be life, there always has to be something to grow into. There always has to be something to expand into. There always has to be whatever we just grew into, whatever complexity we just became, whatever we just discovered about ourselves and then integrated and then are walking out, is going to be the foundation for the next thing. And that's always going to be how it is. So we're never going to arrive anywhere. We're never going to get there. And at the same time, paradoxically, we don't have to get anywhere. We don't have to arrive. We don't have to have an external environment that matches everything we need and who we are and all that stuff before we can say, I fully love and completely accept myself. Even if I never change. Even if I never get over the thing that's wrong with me. Even if I never figure this out. Even if I never get out of pain. Even if I never fix the problem. I'm not going to shame myself anymore, and I'm not going to abandon myself. And then that is a practice. That's not something you just learn how to do one time and now you're your own safe place and you can just be your own safe place forever. Even that is going to be a thing that you work on. Like, that's a path that you will continually expand into and continually have it expand you and continually bring new awareness to yourself of like, whoa, okay, I was shaming myself in this area. I didn't even know that was shaming. I just thought that's what I had to think about myself. I just thought that was obvious fact. This is something wrong with me. And I never even considered until 10 years down the road that might actually just be a genuine part of me, and that's my conditioning, right? Like, waking up to our conditioning, waking up to the matrix. That you're not going to do ayahuasca one time and then see the reality. Because even if you did, it would be so extreme, you wouldn't be able to do anything with it, right? We have to be able to take steps. We have to be able to journey. So that's why I say self-love is something that we can be doing forever as a foundation. It's not the answer. It's a means to an end. So I got a question. Is there any weight and trying to figure out what our base problem is, or is the fundamental truth of self-acceptance not trying to figure it out, not trying to that conditioning? Well, okay, so what I believe to be true about the human being is that there is a fundamental nature to us, right? We have a genetic blueprint. We have these things that are just innate to who we are. And I know that some people don't even believe in that concept, like that and then other people like really, really spiritualize it. And it just seems to me that like everything in nature has an innateness. Yeah, that like a rose can't be anything. It can't be an oak tree, it can't decide to be a fish, it can't decide to be a human. It's a rose. And it has some innate qualities that are just, these are its needs. This is its structure. This is what it needs to function. And when it doesn't get those things, it suffers. It doesn't grow properly, it doesn't express properly. It has to adapt, and those adaptations are a downgrade. And now we are essentially, like there's that quote, that we're essentially houseplants with complicated emotions. We are an evolution on that, on any other thing in nature. We're an evolution on the complexity of a thing that has a structure and a nature and a base requirements for what it needs to thrive. And when those needs aren't met, and when those needs and those conditions aren't met, and or we are antagonized in that, because this is where the conditioning can get so traumatizing, is that not only is it that we're just missing something, like we're just not getting what we need or we're not getting what we want. We are often in this world antagonized in the needs and the wants that we have. This world makes certain ways of being wrong and bad, and that gets you rejected from the tribe. And understanding too evolutionary psychology in our own, in the macro and the micro, being that as babies, as children, we go through that time where we absolutely require being accepted, being loved, for feeling like we're going to be okay, for feeling like we're going to have what we need. Because we can't provide for ourselves. We can't meet our own needs. We can't understand what we even need. And therefore, that acceptance and that codependency that we learn with our parents is a true evolutionary step. And then we're supposed to grow into adults who can say, okay, now I am going to learn how to understand my own needs, how to meet my own needs, and to get my own needs met. But most of us have been so traumatized in our childhoods where we didn't have that secure attachment. We didn't have the caregiver who could understand what we needed, who could understand our pain, who could help us work through things. So again, it's not even necessarily about being like babied and coddled and never having to go through anything hard. It's not that either. It's we need to learn how to learn. We need to have someone there for us to say like, okay, well, you're going through this hard thing. It's challenging. You don't know. You climbed up on the rock. You don't know how to get down. I'm going to help you figure it out. I'm not going to save you. I'm not going to abandon you. I'm not going to scold you. I'm going to help you figure it out. So most of us come into adulthood not knowing how to figure things out. So when it comes to like is the base problem, this is why I say with self-love, the first step is always assume innocence in yourself. Whatever is going on with you, whatever is happening in your life, whatever pain you're in, look for all those little things and all those little ways you're telling yourself, like, this is my fault, this is something wrong with me, I should be better than this, and or this is hopeless, I'm never going to figure this out, I'm alone, this is totally messed up. Okay, so, and what if the rose represents its thorns? How do we accept the sharp parts of ourselves? Exactly that, right? This is what I'm saying. We need to start with assuming innocence. Assuming that what culture tells us, that there is a legitimate possibility that some of us have bad parts, right? And I get it, right? We look at the world and we're like, yeah, well, what about sociopaths? What about people who rape? What about people who murder? What about people who do all these things? They have genuinely bad parts because they're following what they want to do. Okay, we can look at that and we can say, okay, developmental stages and trauma. We're always going to look at these people who are doing incredibly destructive things because we can look at ourselves who are doing self-destructive things. We can look at ourselves and we can say, like, right? I think part of the reason we fear the boogeyman of the, like, if I accept myself, I might become a sociopath is because, again, we're so locked into this conditioning that there's something inherently wrong with us. That fear that I'm going to accept myself and then become a monster is actually a self-protective mechanism. Because we were so shamed and so rejected and so disqualified and cut off from love for parts of ourselves that they became, to our own perception, an existential crisis to us. Like, we gotta understand that those thorns on the rose, they are not inherently bad. Not in real reality. In order to survive in nature, you gotta be able to protect yourself from predators. when we say that's bad, why have we made that assumption? Why have we decided that that's bad? Because it hurts me when I mindlessly run my hand up and down the stem. Well, is it that the rose shouldn't have thorns because you're doing that? Or is it that don't do that? That's how the rose is. So if you don't want to get cut by the thorns that are just stagnant and there and obvious, don't run your hand up and down it. You see what I'm saying? Why is it that we assume the rose is bad? And this is what we're all doing. That deep core, I am so afraid that I'm going to get cut off from love, that I have to believe these parts of me that got me cut off from love are just inherently bad. And then look, the more I've shadowed them, the more I've rejected them, the more they've been antagonized, the more they come out in their shadow ways and look bad and look terrible. You see, like I remember when I was going through anorexia, and this part of me that just was seemingly trying to kill me. And I got to a place where I was like, okay, this anorexic voice, I've been trying to fight with you for years and years and years. I've done all the things. I've done all the therapies. I've like walked you out the door. I've eaten anyways. I've done all that stuff. And the voice is still there telling me I'm fat and I'm ugly and I'm going to die and I need to stop eating. And I got to a place where I was just like, okay, you know what? You're here. You're a part of me. And even if you kill me, I'm going to learn how to be your friend. Because it is very clear to me that I'm never getting rid of you. And I just said, how are you trying to help me? Because the whole world is telling me that you're something wrong and bad about me. The whole world is assuming that this is like a terrible part of me or that I am bad. Right? Like stigmatized, mental illness. That's what's wrong with you that you're like that. Okay. And I was like, fine. If I'm just crazy, I accept it. And in that, what actually started to happen was I started to unravel my conditioning. Like really, really unravel my conditioning. First of all, I started to be able to actually acknowledge and figure out that I was chronically ill. That I didn't just not like food, right? Like now, I don't know if you've watched my videos, but I figured out that I have Asperger's syndrome. And so I literally have never had rest and digest hormones my entire life. I've never been able to enjoy a meal of food and just feel good. Never once for my whole life. So yeah, no wonder. Food isn't exactly my very best friend. I need it to live, and it hurts every time. It's like been poisoning me my whole life. Okay. And then realizing that I had been living this life of trying to be this person, like so much trying to be this person that I was just never going to be. Just so many things about me that didn't work in normal society. And anorexia was trying to give me something to think about, something to control, something to try to make the pain go away. Where so long as I was continuing to live this life that I thought I had to live, I was going to be in pain. She was helping me cope. So, and then, like I say, more and more as I loved her and embraced her or whatever, and it was like, okay, I'm going to listen to you, but I'm not going to act on you. So I'm not going to starve myself. But when you flare up, I'm going to be like, what's really going on here? And oftentimes that anorexia, like let's just get obsessed with something, was trying to protect me from the very real emotional reaction I was having to someone around me or something around me, like that I didn't know how to say, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to go there. That's wrong for me. Or I really want this thing. So I didn't know how to own my power. I didn't know how to ask for what I wanted. I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to, so I just did the things that made me feel totally horrible, and then I distracted myself by being obsessed with my calories. Right? It was a purely innocent part of me. And so then the more I embraced who I really am and what I really want and started to have those hard conversations and do the hard things and go out on my own, the less and less and less I thought about starving myself. Like, I didn't ever have to try to stop. And even with not feeling good when I eat, still to this day, I eat every single day. Enough. No matter what. It's not a question. And I don't have to force myself. Because that part of me now won't let me undereat. Literally. So, like, that's what I'm trying to say, is we all come from this place of, nope, this part of me has to be inherently bad because look what it's doing. So I get it. I was with you. My part of me that was really bad was literally destroying my life. I was almost dead. And yet, it was a good part of me. It was trying to help me. So this is why the paradox of self-love is, we start with assuming innocence. We start with assuming this part of me isn't wrong or bad. And I'm assuming that even if it never goes away, I am going to have to learn to love this part for how it is. Because if we approach self-love with, I'm going to try to love this part of myself so that I can figure out what it is and so that it will change and be something good, that's not love. It's, we got to say, I'm willing to be here with you even if you never change. And even if you kill me. Like, that was what it was for me. That, like, I was just so sick of fighting with myself that I was like, I'm not going to keep fighting with myself. I'm not going to live the rest of my life hating myself and hating this part of myself. Like I said to the anorexia voice, I'm not going to listen to you anymore. Right? Like, I had made that decision a long time ago. I'm not going to starve myself. But I'm not going to fight with you either. When you come up, I'm going to acknowledge you. I'm going to validate you. I'm going to tell you I love you, and I'm going to say I hear you, and I'm going to say, what do you need and what do you want to feel safe? That was my deal with myself. Okay, so this paradox. Yes, we have to assume innocence with ourselves. And so this is the paradox of self-love, is that the more we assume innocence, the more we make room for unconditional love for exactly what we are right now, the more what we are is going to grow. The more what we are is going to change. The more what we are is going to expand. That's paradox. But that's how this life works. So self-love is a means to an end. It's a way of life. It's not, I'm going to try to become someone who fully loves myself and fully accepts myself and never abandons myself and never rejects myself and knows everything about myself and is fully expressed. That's never going to happen. That's not the goal. It's now these are the tools I apply for when I am in those places. Yeah, you can go so Chris asks, any suggestion for how to start the journey of self-love? Go to the beginning of my YouTube channel, read any of my blogs, any of my Instagram posts, go to my highlights. I have an RSL, so that's Radical Self-Love, part 1 through 7. I have all these tools. I hope, like, right, there's no right or wrong way to do it, but like just this, starting to assume innocence with yourself. That's a start. That's how we start this path, and then you can go deeper with my stuff. So there's that. And then, so now let's look at another example of paradox, right? So there's the people, say, who are in sort of religious thinking, or maybe they don't identify with being with religious thinking, but they're in like this is the way the world works. These are the rules, this is how it is, this is, I don't really have control over it, like there's a God that I have to pray to that I hope will just give me the things that I want, or the government, or the like if I just do the system right, I'll get the thing I want because that's the system and that's the book and that's how it works. So there's that kind of consciousness. And then there's the seeming paradoxical consciousness of the kind of New Age, what's happening in the New Age movement right now, of the manifest your reality, you create your reality, you're actually in control of it, it's all in your mind, even sometimes going so far as to say that there isn't a reality, like there isn't an objective reality at all, it's just our consciousness. Right? So we look at these two ways of being and we think, whoa, okay, those could not be more opposite. There is a solid set structure, this is how it is, there's nothing you can do about it, you just have to follow the rules. 2, there literally is no structure at all. It's all just what you believe, and you have complete control. And so this is a perfect example to me of paradox and journey. Because first, when we think about journey, this way of thinking is a stepping stone in our consciousness. And all of us as children go through that phase of just learning these are the rules, this is how life works, because we don't have control, right? That so much of our life is dictated to us by the authority figures in our life. We can't just, I'm not going to go to school. We can't just, I want to study math only, I don't care about English. I want to radically change, I need to change my diet, or like any of these things. As children, we are so controlled by our caregivers. And so life for us in that time really is, if I want the best results I can possibly get within the conditions I'm in, I just have to follow the rules. Or, I have to break the rules, and if I break the rules, I might get a little treat or whatever. But it's very, these are the rules, this is the structure, this is how it works, you don't really have control. Yeah? And then we become teenagers, and then we become young adults, and we kind of swing the other way. So we can see this in just evolutionary psychology of the human being, where it's like, oh, all of a sudden I can stay up all night and jump on the bed and eat Cocoa Puffs, and mom and dad aren't here, and no one can tell me what to do. I can do whatever the frick I want. Look at me, right? I can drive all night. I can drink now. I can party. And we go through that phase of this is my reality. I create my reality. I create my life. I make up the rules. I break all the rules. And look at, nothing bad happens, whatever. And that's kind of mirrored in this religious thinking versus this new age thinking of just kick Cocoa Puffs. I'm just going to follow the rules because these are the rules, and there's the best results I get is being loved and accepted and then being rewarded for following those rules. Because that's how it works, right? Like the idea of heaven, and that we're going to get a reward in heaven. And if we just follow the religion perfectly and do it perfectly, or follow the school, or follow the whatever, like I'm going to get the good retirement, I'm going to get the $1 million, there's this sure path, and if I just follow the rules, I will be rewarded somewhere over there, no matter how horrible and painful it is now. Yeah? And there's that way of thinking. And then there's we feel so liberated when we get to this, what if it's not quite like that? What if there isn't so much of a structure? What if I go this totally other way and see what happens, and actually see that I have some power and I have some control and I can have some pleasure now. I don't have to wait till over there. And so again, these are steps on the path. Are either of these perspectives right or wrong? No. And actually the real truth with a capital T is that both of these perspectives contain partial truth. That's why we still live in a world right now where part of the human population is in this way of thinking, is in the structure, follow the rules, follow the book, there's a reward at the end, consciousness. And to lesser and greater degrees, they're getting relatively okay results for themselves. Like, it's not a complete disaster. So reality is telling us it's not totally wrong. The law of attraction people, the manifestation people, the I create my own reality people, they're manifesting and discovering that if they do focus on something enough, they can actually create it in their life. And they have power where they didn't know they had power before. And they can have desires and go after those desires and do that. And there is a level at which our perception and our thinking and our reasoning is influencing reality. It's not just a set reality that we have no control over that's just happening to us. It's like we are playing a role. Oh, okay, like we're participating. And we're seeing that. So there's elements of truth to that as well. It's not totally false. But neither of them are the ultimate truth about reality. So when we look at these two things and we have these arguments, the New Age people arguing with the structure people, the manifestation people arguing with the structure people, they both have points for how their side is right. right? Like they both can, like the manifestation people can point to all these examples, how I manifested this and I manifested that and this happened and this and that. Okay, yeah. And then the structure people will be like, yeah, but look, I followed the rules and I got this result. I followed the rules and I got this result. I did this and I got that. It's real. It's not just whatever I want. So what's the truth? The truth is both. The truth is there's a structure to our reality. It's not a free-for-all. Yes, if we just look at our own selves. I can't become anything. I'm never going to be a 6'4" African-American basketball player. Doesn't matter how much I manifest. Doesn't matter how much I sit here and think about it. Doesn't matter how much I vision board it. My DNA will never allow me to do that. But were there multiple ways that me as who I actually am could express? Like, could I be a spiritual teacher? Maybe I could have gone into psychology and become a psychologist. Perhaps I could have gone more into writing and just being more of a writer. Like, different places that I've lived in Asia, different things that I've done. Maybe we went to Europe instead of Asia. There were multiple possibilities for what I could have become and what I can become moving forward. It's not set in stone. And I absolutely have control to make choices. Like, I remember there have been many points in my life that I knew at the time, like, this is a turning point. I'm making a decision. Like, there was a time when my husband and I were deciding where we were going to go for a job that he wanted. And we could either go to New York or San Francisco. And it's like, right, like those two choices were absolutely altering my path. If we had gone to New York, it would have been a very, very, very different life than than the life we went that we got going to San Francisco. And that's true. So I don't know what happened on that timeline. But I was manifesting, if you want to say, my ideal life, and I'm following the thing that felt like the highest thing at the time. And like I said, like for me, manifesting is always just, I'm just trying to look for the highest growth path. And that's just kind of one little thing I just want to slip in here, is that what I really believe about manifestation is, especially in my experience, is that we're not ever going to manifest a life where there's no challenge and there's no pain and there's no, right? Like, people can use the manifesting thing, because this is the real truth of it all, right? Why are people even doing either of these two paths? The structure path or the manifestation path. A lot of people are doing it because they're in pain. Their life hurts and it sucks. And they're looking for what they're supposed to do to make it perfect. We're looking for the answer to deliver us from pain. I'm going to follow the rules perfectly, and then I will be perfectly happy. I'm going to manifest perfectly, and then all the painful stuff will stop happening to me. We're trying to control our pain and control the chaos of life. And so this is what I would say is like the ultimate paradox of life. There is chaos. There are always going to be things that happen to you that you did not see coming, that other people and other effects and other influences have altered your path, right? Like, even the body you were born into, with its genetic weaknesses and its genetic strengths, you didn't choose that. And again, I understand some people believe that we choose our bodies before we enter. But to our knowledge, what we can actually prove, you didn't consciously choose your body. You didn't consciously choose the continent you were born on. You didn't consciously choose the parents you were born to. You didn't consciously choose the language you were going to be educated in. And all of those things have a massive impact on your life experience. What your life is going to be. Like a million potentials get erased the moment you're in a specific body, to specific parents, on a specific place, with a specific language. So us trying to be fully in control, to say I'm going to figure it out to some degree, that either I'm going to know the rules enough that I'll follow them perfectly and never have pain again, or I'm going to take control enough and manifest enough and think enough and get my emotions in check enough, or my thoughts in check enough, or whatever, that nothing terrible ever happens to me again. That's our self-protective mechanism. That's our childhood reasoning saying, I have to get into complete control before all the pain will go away. And I can't be happy or live a good life until all the pain goes away. And this is why, the paradox of something like Eckhart Tolle's teachings, where he's talking about being in the present moment and accepting reality for how it is, being something that can be very liberating if it's a means to an end. Accepting reality being a means to, okay, now with that, I'm no longer fighting with what is, because a lot of us are in pain because we keep saying, no, I'm doing this thing, or I'm expecting that life should be going this way, and it's going this other way. So we're in delusion in that we keep trying the same diet and not getting there. We keep doing the same thing with our partners and not getting anywhere. We keep trying the same job and not getting anywhere. We keep trying to fix ourselves with the self-help and it doesn't work. And we think like, well, I'm doing all the right things. Why isn't it working? Because you're not doing the right things. And so we stop arguing with reality. We come into the present moment so we can say, okay, this is what is. This is what's happening. This is how my body is reacting. It's not how I think it should be reacting. It's not what I think should be happening, but it is what is happening. And I need to stop arguing with reality. And then, through that, we discover, now what are the things I'm going to just have to accept? Because I can't change them. Like, I cannot go back and change my past. I cannot go back and change the body that I was born into. I can't change any of the choices that I made. I can't undo. But that doesn't mean I have no power for how I treat myself now, for how I move forward now. Yes, I may have conditioning that tells me I'm not allowed to do this, but if that's really what I feel like I need to do, I'm going to have to try. So what are the things I can change? What are the things I can't? So the acceptance is not so that I will have peace because I accept reality for how it is. Right? Because it's inherently flawed to say that reality is inherently perfect. It isn't. Reality is inherently structured. Reality is inherently structured. It is not inherently perfect. Meaning, both of these perspectives, what you're going to come to realize is that when we really see reality for how it is a base structure. This is how this works. This is how this unfolds. When you do this, you get that result. When you put your hand in a fire, it damages the tissue. Is that perfect? So if your hand is in the fire and it's hurting, and you come into the present moment and you accept, okay, my hand is in the fire and it really, really hurts because it's destroying my tissue. Is that going to bring you bliss? Well, I mean, it might help you relax if you're thinking that putting your hand in the fire should equal something good, or shouldn't hurt. So it will remove the chaos of there's something wrong with me, that my hand is in the fire and that it hurts. So it will feel good in that way. But then does that mean that leaving your hand in the fire is what you should do? Well, if you want to destroy your hand. But if you're a human and you are alive and you're wired for self-preservation, that is going to be painful all the time. And it's painful for a reason, because it's destroying you. And destruction is against the structure of life. So it's not inherently perfect. It doesn't mean, well, my hand ended up in the fire, so I just got to assume that's the perfect thing. No, you got to assume, okay, yes, there was a whole series of events that led up to my hand being in the fire, But now that I recognize it and I've had that experience and I understand the damage that having my hand in the fire does, I get to choose now. Do I want to keep it in there because reality is perfect? Or do I want to try something new and maybe take my hand out because that's not how I want reality to be? As in, I accept that this is how reality is. My hand in the fire equals tissue destruction. So do I want tissue destruction? Is that inherently perfect or is it inherently structured? Every time I put my hand in the fire, I'm going to get the result of tissue destroyed. So is that the result I want? And if not, change your action to get a different result. You see? It's both. You have control. And there is a structure and many things that you have no control over. So Paradox tells us these two things are actually a part of the truth, which is the whole of both of these perspectives together. And most of the time, we have to fully embody one, and the other one will seem crazy to us. And then we eventually reject that one we were in to go into the next one. And then the old one seems crazy. And then the people who are a step above us also seem crazy to us. We fully embody this. And that's the New Agers and the law of attraction manifesting Abraham Hicks people who just like believe it and that is the only thing that's real and they won't even talk to you about anything. Okay, good. Like, right? They're in their phase. They need to go through that. Let them have their journey. And then eventually, they will come to see that that's not the complete picture either. And they will evolve. They will take their journey. So with Paradox, we always want to say, look, when we're facing paradox in life, we want to be the kind of people who say, I'm seeing these two apparent opposites. I'm seeing these two apparently contradicting things. And I can see that there's evidence for both. When you're ready, right, because most of the time, again, embracing journey. If you can only see the evidence for one, you're in that place. Just let yourself be there. If you're facing paradox, but the other side just seems totally nutty, and like there isn't anything to it, and like you only have reasons for why your thing is right, be in your phase. Because like I say, right, like most law of attraction abundance people, you try and tell this to them, and they're going to be like, no, you're nuts. It's completely all in my head. You're just negative or you're caught in whatever. And I would say, okay, good, right? If that's all you can see and that's the only thing that makes sense to you, then that's the phase you're in and be in that phase. Go, embody it, like literally flush it out, discover everything there is about it. Be on your place on the journey. But when you get to a place where you can start to see, okay, well, it's uncomfortable because I'm seeing holes in my thing that I'm seeing, that like there's still some evidence that it's true, but now there's like there's these complicating factors I'm starting to see. My mind is actually expanding to see the evidence for where my theory doesn't always hold water, where I'm being a little bit contradicted by reality. And instead of fighting with reality and being like, well, reality's going wrong because I got the right idea. If I just do everything natural, I will be in perfect health. And then you don't brush your teeth, and then you get 80 cavities. Okay. Ooh. What happened there? Now we can either argue with reality and be like, no, the natural way is the best way. My teeth were wrong. Or we can say, well, maybe the ingenuity of brushing our teeth is a good thing. And it's not that nature is inherently perfect. Nature is inherently structured. And decay happens. And we have figured out things, unnatural things, that actually give us a chance to survive better. So it's not one or the other. But I can't hold on to my old way of thinking, which is that nature is perfect, because I'm getting evidence that I'm incorrect. So to live a true life where paradox can expand you, we have to be willing to say, My view of reality is clearly incorrect, incomplete, when reality contradicts what I think should happen. And that's where I think a lot of people struggle, is most of us are fighting with reality. Because we have our set of, this is what I need to believe, this is what I believe about how reality is and how reality works. So anything that contradicts that, I'm going to figure out how that was wrong. That shouldn't have happened, that isn't like that, or that happened for this kind of weird, obscure reason, or I'm going to fit it into my reasoning. Instead of going, okay, evidence. My picture isn't complete. It doesn't mean I have to throw everything out. It doesn't mean it's totally wrong. But clearly, it's not everything. There's something more complex. And this is how we should be experiencing life forever. An ever-increasing complexity of life. That is what Paradox is pushing us to do. So we embrace whatever makes perfect sense to us right now. And then when there starts to be holes, we look to the other perspective. And rather than saying, well, it's wrong, and I just need to hold on to my perspective, we need to say, no, I'm being presented with contradictory evidence. So let's take that in. Let's consider that. How does this fit in to my worldview? How can this expand my worldview? Because reality isn't wrong. So this kind of ties our talk together, right? That as we're assuming innocence in ourselves, we start to discover our own complexity. We start to discover the thorns aren't bad. The thorns are there for a very important reason. They protect me from predators and keep me alive. That's awesome. Maybe some people don't like it, but that's their fault for not aligning with the nature and structure of reality, which is, if you want to hold on to a rose, be careful of the thorns. Use your eyes. You have eyes. And just like we do that with ourselves, we start to do that with greater reality. How do I start to look at greater reality and assume innocence? Because again, I understand that for most of us, we can't deal with paradox and we can't deal with journey. We need everyone to believe what we believe, and if they don't, they're retarded. That's a terrible word, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't use that word. If they don't, they're evil, they're bad, they're wrong, they're ignorant, they're sheep, right? We come up with all these labels for these people who don't believe what we believe, rather than saying, they are where they are on their path, and they might be ahead of me. I don't know. Because it is self-protective mechanism to make ourselves feel like we have security in that we already know everything. When we reject evidence that contradicts our worldview, and when we reject others who believe things that we don't believe, or who don't believe the things that we believe. We're doing that to protect ourselves from having to say, I don't know everything. Because again, what are we afraid of? The chaos. We're afraid of pain. We're afraid of the pain and the chaos we can't control. We're afraid of this world that's just going to hurt us. We're all trying to say, no, I have it figured out. Even if the thing I do over and over and over again has never gotten me the results. Has it worked? Never once. But it's going to work one of these days because I have it figured out. Because that's easier than, okay, I don't know what to do. I don't have the answer. My worldview is incomplete. I have a learning trauma and I need to learn something. And learning is not as scary and as hard and as impossible as we think. It doesn't have to come from a book. It doesn't have to come from another person. Like, we're also afraid that if someone isn't there telling us what the answer is, we can never figure it out. Okay, well, where did that person get the answer? Reality. A good teacher is literally just reiterating what you could discover interacting with reality. They are stating the obvious. They are stating phenomenon. And if a teacher is teaching something that isn't that, then it's probably just not true. It's not reality. So we need to, again, become our own safe place enough that we are willing to admit when our version of reality isn't lining up with how reality actually works. Because that's a growth opportunity. And that exposes us to the next level of complexity of reality that was always there. Yes, the religious people who believe there's just a structure and weren't aware that they were creating their own realities in some ways. That they were influencing their own self. It's not just about do the same things over and over again and hope that God comes and rescues you. Like, you can change your diet and it'll change your health. Don't pray for it. You see what I'm saying? You have control. It's not that that didn't exist. It's that their consciousness was not complex enough to be able to even see that. And when they came into it, reality didn't change. Reality didn't all of a sudden become, it used to be a complete structure and I had no control, and now I have some control. They always had control. They just didn't see it. It was their perception that changed. So what we're doing when we're accepting paradox, when we're even able to see paradox, and instead of going, that's stupid, or that's evil, or that's wrong, we go, okay, well, I can see that there are parts of this that must be true. Because look, they're getting results that they're saying they're getting. Or I'm getting results that align with this, that don't align with my old thing. If we can say, good, okay, I just got exposed to a layer of complexity I didn't even see or understand before. And that is going to help me solve my problems, because that's the big thing. If you have problems you're dealing with over and over and over again, it's because your view of reality is too simple. What you think the cause is and what the solution is too simple. And it may be that you discover that the problem you have is something you have very little control over. It may be. But if you're in a place where you just feel completely trapped and helpless and hopeless, keep surrendering that you already have the answer. That you know it all already. That your worldview is complete and this is it. You got to be like, okay, there has to be something else. There's got to be something bigger. There's more to reality than what I'm seeing. And then that's going to start to open your mind to paradox. There are going to become things into your perception that you go, okay, well, that doesn't align with how I think life is at all. And you have to make yourself safe enough to take that in, not reject it, and really look at it, really question it, really go like, okay, how is this true? How are maybe some of the things that I believe currently not true? Like if I look at the result, am I getting the results I should be getting? No? Okay, well, reality isn't wrong. If I'm not getting the result I should be getting, then I shouldn't be getting that result. We got to stop arguing with reality. And then we got to let ourselves go on the journey. And we got to let other people be on their journey. So looking for the right teaching, looking for the right truth, looking for the right answer. That is relative to you. And that will be relative to you for the rest of your life. So like discovering the law of attraction is going to be the right answer for people who are at that place in their development. Because they need to learn that. And then they're going to go totally down the rabbit hole. They're going to go all the way in. It's going to be like the only thing that matters to them. The only thing that's real. They're going to fully embody it. They're going to go through it. And like I said, reject everything else. And then they'll evolve to the next thing. But does that mean that their time in the law of attraction teachings was wrong? No, it wasn't wrong. It was exactly what they needed to do to learn that part. It was grade 2. In grade 2, you're not worrying about what's going on in grade 3 or grade 4 or grade 5. You're fully in grade 2. And the more you're in grade 2, right, the paradox, the more you accept what you're in, the more you just fully embody what you're in, the faster you're going to learn about it, the faster you're going to learn everything there is to learn there, and then you're going to evolve faster, right? If you really want to grow as fast as possible, then just get busy being in what you're in. That day-to-day stuff. What am I learning from this? My mundane day-to-day tasks, my emotional reactions to things, the way that I speak, the way that I live, the way that I walk, the things that I want, the things that hurt, the things that don't. Process all that. That's it. Be in your life. Let yourself constantly have your worldview rocked. Because that's what it really means to be on a life-generating path. A self-love path is going to mean that you never get there. You're always, whoa, it's so much more complex than I thought. Whoa, it's so much deeper than I thought. Oh, there's so much more. Whoa, I was totally stuck, and then I had the dark night of the soul, and then I found something new about myself. And then that opened this whole universe that I didn't even know existed. I totally believed this thing forever, and then I started to have contradictory evidence that I didn't even see before, and instead of rejecting it, I investigated it, and it expanded my worldview. It didn't erase everything I had before, because everything that we are is built on. So the structure, and then we build on top of that, the conscious creation. And then that creates the complex structure of both. We can hold both of these ideas at the same time, because they're both existing at the same time. It's not unlimited potential. It's not no potential. Be on the journey you're on, and then allow other people to be on the journey they're on. And this is hard, but people who are holding on to their beliefs for dear life need to right now. That's how they're finding security. That's how they're finding, and it's, again, sometimes it is the exact right thing. This is why some of us come to one spiritual teacher and go that was the most profound thing that I've ever seen, changed my life, absolutely amazing. Another person could be that was garbage. That actually hurt me. And sometimes it's the way we perceive things. We can both sit and listen to the same talk, and this person takes this thing away from it, and this person takes this thing away from it. Right? We can use the presence idea, and some person might use that as a spiritual bypassing tool. I'm just going to be in the present moment all the time and just ignore all my pain and believe that reality is perfect and anything that hurts is just in my mind. Or they take the present teaching and say, okay, no, I'm in pain right now, and this is actually a painful thing. So let's embrace it, let's accept it, let's look at it, and what can I do about it? What is this telling me? What is this teaching me? Same teaching, two totally different perspectives. Yeah? So again, we got to understand where we're at. We got to understand how we're perceiving. And just follow the thing that makes the most sense to you right now. Really be in that. And when reality starts to contradict you, make it safe to question. That's the beauty of paradox. Make it safe. That learning is actually the stability. Your security doesn't come from already knowing all the answers. Security comes from knowing you can figure it out. Security comes from knowing you can figure it out. It doesn't come from already having the answers. Security comes from knowing you can learn and grow, and when the chaos happens to you, you can figure out where your power is in it. You're never going to have full control. There are going to be things that are inherently painful. We are vulnerable. We are not in complete control. We are vulnerable to others. We are vulnerable to systems. We are vulnerable to patterns that are already at play way before we became a human being. And we have power. Sometimes the power is just in our mind to change our perception. But it's not one or the other. It's both. So we're never going to perfectly protect ourselves from pain. And protecting ourselves from learning isn't a way to protect ourselves from pain. It's actually a way to ensure that we stay stuck in pain. So paradox is a gift. Continue to allow yourself to be on your journey, to accept paradox, to allow it to expand you. When there starts to be holes in your worldview, follow that. Don't look to try to reinforce what you already know and come up with some very complicated mind game to get rid of the evidence that's contradicting you. Right? Look at that evidence. Let it expand you. Be the type of person that can say, I took in new information and changed my opinion based on that new information. The world was actually more complex than I thought. It wasn't so simple. I thought I had the perfect answer, but it wasn't that. It's more complex. Okay? So that's my talk on that. I hope that helped. It's okay. And if it really scares you, you're not ready, that's okay too. Be in what you're in until what you're in doesn't work anymore. And then understand, reality didn't change. You changed. You got more expanded. And so celebrate that. When your worldview starts to not work anymore, that should be a like, good job. I just became more complex. When my thinking I had it all figured out and there starts to be holes in it, that's a good thing. That means you became more complex. That means you grew. When you start to be able to see paradox, that's something to celebrate. Good job. Now, let it expand you. Look at both sides. Where are both sides true? Where are both sides true? Where's the truth in it? And how do they fit together? To expand your worldview to like, okay, it's more complex than I thought. Is it determined? Is life meaningless or is it inherently meaningful? Well, maybe it's both. Maybe it's inherently just a structure and we infuse meaning into it. Right? These two things can coexist. So when you start to have these questions, celebrate that. Make it safe to question these things. Make it safe to not know. Make it safe to not know, because you will figure it out. The safer you make it when you don't know, the faster you will figure it out. So when you don't know and you're facing your problem and you've done your thing over and over again and you've done everything you've known to do and you don't know how to fix it, make it safe to be like, okay, I don't know. But rather than having that shut you down, let it be something that says, I don't know, so I'm going to get curious. There's something I'm just not even seeing. There's some little step, some little thing, some there that's out of my perception right now. But I first have to surrender that I already know everything, and so there just isn't an answer. And say, I don't already know everything. There's an answer I haven't even seen that I haven't even seen that I haven't even seen. And I'm going to love myself and accept myself exactly how I am right here, right now, even if this never changes. And as you do that, your nervous system comes down, and then you're probably going to see something. Paradox. All right? So that's that. I love you. You're perfect. And you're always going to be growing. And reality is your teacher. So always test everything you hear, especially everything you hear here, against reality. Don't believe me. All right? Believe reality, always above me. If I'm wrong, write me off. Believe reality. And I love you, and you're perfect, and you're great, and I'll see you in the next video. Mwah.